What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Mason T, and I am an importer slash product developer. So I have been following the whole conversation of eBay reselling on YouTube for about 6 months now, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything with my first critiques of exactly what the eBay conversation on YouTube is. So essentially, when you think about what reselling is, it is the most basic entry-level version of dealing tangible goods on the internet. So once you get into a higher level, such as white labeling and private labeling, which is more specifically what I do, you're talking about making up deals and, setting up a pipeline of your supplier to your sales channel, importing things from overseas. You have to worry about logistics. You have to worry about how to read the market properly, predicting future trends in the market, spotting gaps in the market, as well as when you do listings, you're trying to nurture listings from scratch so that they become high-performing listings for long-term stability and sales. So what I do is far more complex. So when we come back to just talking about eBay reselling, it's not so much about comparing apples to oranges or saying one is better than the other. No, eBay reselling is an excellent place for people who haven't done much business before or who don't have much of a business background to start off somewhere, because you have to start off somewhere. It's an excellent stomping ground. I 100% give it that. The issue is the conversations that is going on YouTube right now by a whole bunch of people who are nothing more than just resellers that don't really know more than the average person. That's the problem. So today's particular video is going to be about this one. Now, mind you guys, I want to blow this up a bit because I want to show you guys that all of the comments over here are overwhelmingly positive, right? Of people who kind of sort of just go along with it, take everything at face value, and then you could see that a lot of thumbs up going on over here, right? But what's more important is to understand that this guy is just making stuff up as he goes along. Okay, so we're gonna watch this together. You're gonna see a lot of delusional things happen, and my main criticism is that even if I was to concede that what the parameters that he's setting is true, the things and his solutions based on what he thinks how the world works still doesn't make any sense, and it's so funny. Watch.
What's up, guys? Welcome to A Reseller's Life. My name is Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about a simple way to increase your traffic on eBay. So for those of you just getting to know me, my name is Chris. I've been running this online store with about 5,000 listings since 2017. And I've been observing Cassini, which is the way that eBay ranks its items, for a long time. So what we do know is that Cassini is a robot. What it's doing is it's looking at the number of impressions that a listing gets, which is how many times somebody sees it while they scroll down, versus the click-through, which is how many times people click on it, and the conversion.
How many times somebody sees something as they scroll down? How many of the same listings do you have that you're spamming onto the... I'm not too sure exactly what it's talking about. And plus, an algorithm is not a robot. Algorithms are fed to robots, but essentially what an algorithm is just a list of instructions. That's all it really is. So Cassini, the algorithm, this whole thing is really not as scary as what people think it is. As long as you understand roughly exactly what the script is written and how the script has to be written so that it could respect organic traffic ultimately, so that customers don't get upset using this thing, because if too many customers get frustrated using eBay, then people will leave the platform. It's just that simple. At the moment right now, Amazon #1, eBay #2, but it's good to understand that the amount of sales that happens on Amazon is about 60 times the amount of what's happening on eBay. And I'll get into more explanations in future videos.
Which is how many times people buy it. So they're looking at it percentage-wise. Cassini is not a person. eBay does not favor certain people over other people. It's just based on math. So when somebody ends their listing and does the sell similar function, they give the item a new life, essentially, because eBay doesn't know what kind of metrics this item should have, especially on a pre-owned item. Now, if it's a brand new item and there's a UPC, eBay's algorithm will kind of have an idea of how many views equals a sale. Now, I want to explain why this is the most frustrating thing ever for veteran sellers. Let's say you've been selling on eBay for a long time, you have a great track history, you always ship on time, you have perfect feedback. Somebody else, some Joe Schmo who just started eBay today, sells their exact item before you. This is the reason why. eBay's algorithm doesn't know and it doesn't discriminate. It gives every listing a unique opportunity to sell. Now, this has come under attack from a lot of the larger sellers that are saying, no, that's not fair.
Okay, so a lot of what he's saying, right, is very difficult to debunk right now because it depends what we're talking about, right? Are we talking about reseller versus reseller, or are we talking about an established seller like myself versus somebody new like yourself? Okay, because my listings are going to crush your listings. Now, if you're talking about favoritism of listing versus listing, that's exactly the situation, right? The algorithm is not going to favor one account over another account. If you're putting up a brand new listing that has no history, no conversion, and I'm doing the exact same thing, then we are on even playing fields right now. But if I have a listing that it is a replenishable listing, so it has a lot of conversion on it, it has a lot of sales history on it. So of course, it's going to be ahead of yours. It pretty much doesn't matter what you do unless you pay a lot to the sponsored stuff. So how does the sponsored stuff work? Okay. Essentially, whatever your item is, Cassini is going to essentially give a light read of what your item is based on, its title and what you created and stuff. That's why you have to finish creating the listing first before you add promotion to it. So once you created the listing, eBay itself already sees that, okay, this thing, or the recommended, promotion could be anywhere between depending on the category and what it is, 5%, 7%, 9%, it depends. Now, as your item starts to perform over time, the algorithm is going to start seeing, what your item is starting to rank for. And based on those more specific keywords that have a better chance of conversion, the rating starts to go higher and higher. So if you ever notice on your back end, that's why it initially starts off at like 7%, 9%, because it's a very fresh listing. But eventually, if you have an item that's been on for a while, the recommended percentage can go as high as some stuff on my back end of my account is like 21% if you want to rank for that or not. So it is best that you are a professional seller buying things in bulk, shipping things from overseas, buying it as cheap as possible so that you have the margins to go ahead and push something at 21% to eBay and still not lose too much money in order to get good promoted traffic first. And then we go ahead and start to back it off later once we're starting to get a lot more of that organic traffic. That's how we do my side of the business. What you're talking about with reseller versus reseller, yeah, because you guys are both putting up randomly sourced items and stuff, and it happens to be a match to each other, but you're both putting it up brand new because you both just sourced it and you just got it. So yeah, you're going to be on equal footing. So I don't really know exactly what he's complaining about here. This is simply just the way that business models work. I find that one of the funniest things about a lot of these eBay gurus and how they perceive how eBay works is very misled. And the reason why it's misled is because eBay reselling does not align with Cassini. I'll get more into that in this video.
If I've already sold this item several times, or I know what I'm doing, why don't I get preferential traffic, right? I already know what I'm doing.
If you sold this item several times on the same listing and the listing is not ended, then you do get preferential treatment because you have sales history versus somebody else's brand new listing that doesn't have sales history. So what he said earlier is not true. And now what he's saying now is also not, it's just that the way he's framing it doesn't make any sense, because he's trying to say that, well, I sold this, how come I'm not getting actually you are getting preferential treatment. So how come when I'm a veteran account versus, yeah, because you guys are putting up new listings together at the same time. That's why you don't get preferential treatment. So it's a huge misunderstanding of what is happening between an account versus a powerful account versus a powerful listing. You always have to keep in mind that your account is essentially just a vessel for all of your listings. Ultimately, to succeed on any platform is to have high ranking listings. And in order to do that, you have to prove yourself in order to do that. In the beginning, you could pay for it by spending a lot of money on ads and stuff, but ultimately, ads just give you a lot of visibility. It's still not going to convert if it's not what people are looking for or if people are finding better value items. So you could put really high, right? 25% ad rate, but the value that you're offering versus the price that you're asking for is the deal breaker. So you're going to get a lot of eyeballs and you're going to get no sales. That happens all the time. But at least once we understand that's what's happening to our listing, we know how to adjust for it. So many times, don't go ahead as a businessman and just blame other people. The sooner, the better that you blame yourself first. You could change something. If something you did was wrong, you could go ahead and spot that. But if your attitude is, this is no good, that's no good, see, this is not fair, so a lot of people, there's been an uproar about this. This is very dismissive behavior. And when you act that way, you're not going to scrutinize your business and you're just going to keep flopping.
Doesn't that give the customer a better experience? It does, and this is one of the reasons why I think eBay has been.
So earlier he just said that it doesn't give it a better experience, and that's what people are complaining about, and now he's saying it does. So it does or it doesn't. I don't know.
Declining over the past 5 years or 6 years. They got a little bit of a boost because of our situation when everyone started shopping online. But for the most part, eBay has been declining or barely growing versus the other platforms like Amazon exploding. Because Amazon only does, for the most part, what's better for the customer. So what ends up happening is more and more people shop on Amazon. But on eBay, the best option for the customer is not always what the customer sees.
Okay, so he just compared and contrast like Amazon to eBay, and then he's saying that on Amazon, they focus more on the customer, but on eBay, and then he just goes into a completely different argument that has nothing to do with the contrast of how platforms care about whether it's the customer or the seller. What is this argument? So a lot of double speak, and we just jump to like another topic. But me clarify what's happening with Amazon first, okay? Amazon does absolutely prioritize the customer, because if all the customers are on this platform, then all the sellers are going to go over to that platform because that's where the money is. So of course you need to prioritize the customer first. How does Amazon prioritize the customer? Well, first, what they did was that they took investments about like $20 million worth, and they starved out the book industry first. That way they quartered the market on just books. They needed to find one niche that they could crush. And they knew that digital media is eventually going to crush paper media, exactly like how, news outlets, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff, right, is destroyed what newspapers are, right? People watch the news on TV, people watch the news on the internet, people watch the news on their phone. Not so many people are doing the whole extra, read all about it. Here's 25 cents, give me a paper, kid. Nobody's doing that anymore, right? So the same idea is happening with Borders Books and Barnes and Nobles at the time. So what they did is that they starved out those book guys, and then they quartered the market on books. We all agree that Amazon has quartered the market on books, right? With the Kindle and all that other stuff. So essentially, they built a business first where there is constantly going to be a flow of income to be the backbone of the business so that they could do something else with the money. And what they did was that they created an excellent infrastructure where there is no reason to shop anywhere else other than Amazon. What they did is that they made Prime accounts, they set up their own fleet of delivery services, and they created the whole Amazon FBA model so that all of the merchants, if you want to make serious cash, if you want to make serious business on Amazon, you have to be a fulfilled by Amazon seller in order to do it, because that fits the Prime model. Customers have no reason not to shop on Amazon because, number one, you get all your shipments very quickly if you have a Prime account. You get to return for any reason whatsoever with the A to Z guarantee. So they created this whole ecosystem that gives the customer no excuse not to shop on Amazon. And at the same time, all of the merchants' inventory or whatever are all at Amazon, being handled by Amazon. So they control everything. That's why they're able to create this excellent customer service, this excellent customer experience for all of the customers that come onto Amazon. Okay. So they thought of this first, and eBay didn't do that. Had eBay started their own fleet and then did eBay Prime and stuff like that, then we would have a completely different story. If you could do fulfilled by eBay, it would be a completely different story. But he didn't say that because he doesn't really understand anything about business. So he just went, oh, they prioritize customers. And then in contrast to eBay, then now he just starts talking about something else. Look, I'll rewind just a little bit over here and then listen to how he frames it.
So what ends up happening is more and more people shop on Amazon. But on eBay, the best option for the customer is not always what the customer sees. This is why promoted listings has come under fire as well, because you can actually pay to get increased traffic to your listing, even though your listing might suck. Somebody is looking for item number A. You would think that eBay would just give them the cheapest one that's the best price, but that's not true. There are other listings that show up. Somebody who just listed it, somebody who's doing promoted listings, these might show above the best deal for the customer. What that does is that makes customers shop somewhere else.
Okay, another hideous misunderstanding of exactly how eBay works, how everything works, okay? Number one, when you search something, sure, the first couple of ones say sponsored, right? So those are the sponsored ads. Okay, how many sponsored ads do you see before you start seeing the top ranking best matched items? Not that many, right? You might see like 4 or 5 sponsored ads and stuff. And then as you scroll down, you're going to see the other ones as well, the organic high ranking listings. And that's exactly how eBay works. Now, when you click on stuff, it will cross promote sponsored ads. But as you search for stuff, things that come up in your search queries, that's not how it happens, right? And essentially, all of the most important things are still pretty much at the top of the first page. They don't flood the top of the first page with just anybody who pays for the sponsored stuff. So this is exactly why on your back end, when it says recommended, what the sponsored percentage is supposed to be, recommended exactly what the promoted ad is supposed to be. If it says 19%, 13%, like whatever the percentage is, if you don't make that percentage, then you don't get to be sponsored all the way at the top when there is the high traffic, when all the good keywords are being searched for, the main keywords are being searched for. You don't get that. You get a couple of the sub. So yeah, if you promote your listing less than what is recommended, you'll still get some eyeballs from promotion, but it won't be as hard as the ones of the people who paid more for it. So that's exactly how that works. Now, the listings that are right under what the sponsored listings are, those are the high organic stuff. So why do the eBay show that stuff? Because those are the best sellers. If you have a website, you're definitely going to sell and feature your best sellers first because they have the highest tendency in order to convert. Why? Because they have the track record that proves that they do so. So that's why you would just keep selling that stuff. If you have something that sold 400 times, you would continue to try to sell it 4,000 times, 40,000 times, 400,000 times, right? You would just keep going because that's the best one. That's what people want until you find another king of the hill. And in order to be the next king of the hill, you have to prove yourself basically by offering better value for less money, et cetera, et cetera. You guys already know how business works. So instead of just saying that and understanding that, this guy is just, delulu and just making up stories and stuff. And he goes really deep into it. You'll see what I mean.
It also makes customers mad if they end up buying something and they find out it's cheaper later. It's frustrating for sellers like me. I can offer sometimes the product at the best price, best deal, top rated seller, but lose out to somebody who just started because of the way that eBay works. So instead of fighting against the current, this is what we can do to change that.
The problem is that you are not a private labeler, right? So it's not your item versus somebody else's item. You guys are not Canon versus Sony. You guys are not Adidas versus Nike, okay? You guys are all selling the same thing because you're resellers. So when he's selling a pair of Nike, Air Force Ones, well, so is somebody else. And it's the same model, same everything. It might even be the same size and same color. So now what? Well, I guess it's that depends. Like, who's going to pay for some sponsored ads if you're all the way in the back? If you're if you're selling an item that's difficult to search engine optimize for. So that's exactly what happens. Plus, both of you guys only have a single pair of it, and then once you're done with this item, you're just going to go list something else. So of course, both of you are starting from scratch. It's really strange to put out this whole narrative and backstory of what you think is happening. And if anything, the more he talks about it, the more it exposes that you don't understand how any of this works.
You can do periodically through your aging inventory system. So I have a system for like what I do when listings get old. So what I usually do is, instead of decreasing the price, I increase my promoted listings a little bit to see if I can pay eBay's ransom, meaning I want that impression. So I pay a little bit more to get my listing to show up first, hoping that will convert. If that doesn't work, I might turn off promoted listings, relist the item with a slightly lower price, and not pay any promoted listings. Or I might actually discount a bunch of my items to try to increase the velocity on the entire store. So somebody asked me, Chris, why does it look like you're selling some items at a loss? Because I am. I'm actually looking to increase the velocity of the entire store. I personally would like to be at 20% sell-through rate.
He is describing right now how he's going to lose money on other items in order to promote and sell, or help the likelihood of selling his harder to sell items or more expensive items. Why would selling one thing help you sell something else? Look, it's one thing if, let's say, a donut shop is doing a sale on all the bear claws or something like that, of their winning bear claws. And now a whole bunch of customers are coming in. And while they come in, they buy a lot of coffee as well. So we sell even more coffee. Yeah, this is because you're already there and this is like a physical store. But when you're talking about listings, people search for listings and they see exactly what they search. So if you got some baseball caps and stuff and people are searching for sneakers, why would that help your baseball cap sell? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't show up in the same search queries because it's not even part of the same category. So for you to say that, look, hey, I'm going to go sell, more stuff to increase the velocity somewhere or whatever, then it would just increase the velocity of those particular items. If suddenly now you sold an expensive item or whatever, then that's just coincidental, especially if you only have one copy of it. Your sample size is too small to say that correlation equals causation. Guys, if you resonate with the message of correlation does not necessarily equal causation, this is a perfect example of it right here.
And that's where I'm at. In the last 30 days, on 5,000 items in my store, I sold about 1,100 on eBay and about 500 on other platforms of the same inventory. So I'm well above my 20%. So I'm kind of testing it. That means I'm selling.
So he just talked about how he is selling at 20% over here. Like his sell-through rate is at 20%. David Palaio also said that in his video that he's, moving at 20% over here. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So you have 5,000 listings. David Palaio has 16,000 listings. I don't care. I don't care how many listings you have, right? You definitely put 100% efforts to acquire all of those items and then, process them and then list them and then, put them online, all that stuff, right? Take photos and stuff like that. That's 100% effort put into that, right? Because if I do 10 listings or if I do 100 listings, it's just because I did more. Okay. Imagine getting a 20% turnout for it. So some people might argue that 20% is pretty good. Well, how is this pretty good? Imagine working 10 hours and being paid for 2 hours. Isn't that 20% return for the efforts that you put in? Except that you are self-employed. So there's nobody to complain to. So you have no choice but, just to take this as is. The problem with reselling is that you're not supposed to do this at such a high level. You're not supposed to push this so far because the amount of efforts that you have to put in versus what you get is very, very, diminishing returns over time. That's the problem with this business model. So again, for anybody who wanted to get into reselling, totally recommend it because it builds muscle. It helps you understand a lot of the surface level knowledge that you need in order to get to more profound knowledge. However, the problem is that if you're doing this you're spinning the hamster wheel on this thing, because think about how you source things and then what you sell, and then how you're just going to keep accumulating dead stock over time. Because a portion of the stuff that you source, the high STR items, they're going to sell out within the first month, right? That's why it's called a high STR item. And then the rest of your inventory is going to be a random mix of different kinds of mid STRs to low STRs and things that just never sell. As you constantly do this over time, you're going to accumulate more and more unsellable items. So what do you do with those things? What is the exit strategy? Guys like this have pivoted over to things like palleting and other sources of liquidation. So they have already went on to some other kind of exit strategy that they don't actually share on YouTube. That's the one thing that I'm going to do another video on specifically. But what I don't like is that they continue to preach that you should push forward with reselling constantly, right? You should never evolve into something else. That's where I don't think that's right. That's the gatekeeping part that I don't think is right, because what you're telling people is, hey, be a reseller, stay as a reseller, reselling is great. All the while you're making video content like this and then telling people to stay that way, while you go ahead and then push your items onto them, like you liquidate your items onto them so that they stay as the reseller part, but then you get to mitigate like all the risk and stuff because you have an actual exit strategy on top of being a YouTuber and a course seller and all that other stuff.
Selling items a little bit too cheap on the platform because the velocity is faster than I want it to be. Meaning, obviously you can increase how fast you sell things by just giving away stuff, right? But I'm trying to test the limits. Can I give away a bunch of cheap stuff so that my expensive stuff starts selling? In my opinion, yes, that does work. So for me to sell a bunch of $80 to $100 items, I'm totally fine giving away a bunch of $5, $6, $7 items.
In my opinion, yeah, it does work, even though that's not how the world works, but it is opinion, So listen to exactly what he's saying. I'm gonna sell a whole bunch of cheap stuff for lower to help sell my more expensive stuff. Isn't that how Costco works? We're going to sell. We're never going to change the price of our hot dogs for the past 50 years and stuff. Is $1.50 for a hot dog and a soda, while everything else comes up in price. Because when you go to Costco, you're not just going to buy just a rotisserie chicken and a hot dog and go home, right? Of course, there's probably some people who do that, but a lot of other people are going to go there, see these items, definitely pick up these items, but at the same time, they're going to buy other things while they are at Costco. But the thing is that what we're talking about is not a physical store. So whatever that you search, you're just going to be looking at whatever your search query is. How does this logic make any sense?
To increase the velocity, click-through, and sell-through rate of the entire store. Now,
increase the velocity.
I want to talk about a couple of things. One is, on eBay's traffic page, they will show you the organic traffic versus the promoted traffic. They will also show you external, which is people coming outside of eBay, and internal. So for my store, I actually have an obscenely low click-through rate because there's probably about 500 people a day from YouTube who look through my store and don't buy anything. They don't buy anything and they don't click on anything.
So why would that change any metrics on your back end if somebody just clicks on your store because you put your store link on YouTube and then they didn't click on anything? You just said that they don't click on anything. So why would that change the metrics of anything? The whole point of your back end metrics of getting eyeballs and click-through rates and stuff like that is based on keyword searches, right? So it's showing the impressions based on how people search for stuff on the main search engine. So if people click your direct link to your store and they didn't click on any of the listings in your store, why would any of your backend metrics change? That doesn't make any sense. That's like saying every single time, I sign into my account or whatever, he gets 500 views. Like that makes no sense.
So eBay is like, What is wrong with this store? We're giving this there's 500 leads coming in and none of them are converting. It's because people are just looking at what I'm selling. This is one of the reasons why I don't recommend you share your store on social media if you're just getting started, because you really need the traffic that comes to your listing to actually convert.
So he's trying to say that ever since he gave out his store link and then people have clicked on it, it has destroyed his business. Is that what you're saying? Look, in reality, how does this make any sense? Everybody has had that experience where, you know, they sold some personal stuff, right? Whether it's for your wife or yourself or whatever, you have some handbags, a pair of sneakers, something that's still in pretty good condition that you don't want anymore, a gift that you received that you don't really like, so that you put it on eBay, and it didn't sell until 3 months later, 8 months later, 2 years later. You completely forgot about it. You don't revise it. You don't do anything about it. I just put it there. And if it sells, it sells, because I don't really care, because I'm not a professional seller, right? Everybody has had that personal experience before. How do those things sell 3 months later, 8 months later, 2 years later, if there are all these negative brownie points on it that's making it invisible and being shadow banned on the platform? It doesn't make any sense. eBay makes money when you make money, and that's how they get their cuts. So nothing is ever shadow banned. It's just organically, nobody's searching for it. Nobody wants it. It's just that simple. If you're selling something that people aren't really looking for, or you spelled it wrong, or you didn't categorize it right, or you didn't name it properly, you don't have a decent title, or you don't have any photos or stuff like that, then it's not going to sell. You know, in the early days of eBay, there was actually a lot of listings that didn't even have photos, because people didn't have scanners, and, you know, technology was just, you know, very primitive at the time. But my point is that that's not how the real world works, but we're just gonna go on and make up these stories and fill in the blanks.
So be very careful. Also,
Be careful.
if your store is stale, let's say your sell-through rate is under 10%, it might make sense for you to just turn off the entire store, delist the entire store, relist all of them in segments. It doesn't matter if you list them all in one day or all in a week. That part's not as important as making sure you are in the performance page, looking at the traffic. Okay, how many views is this getting? Did it actually sell? Did people actually click? What's wrong with it? Do I need to change the pictures? We know that plain white pictures improve the click-through rate.
That's not true. That's not true. This is from a guy who's never heard of, like, have you never heard of what a hero photo is? Hero photos are far better than just, you know, item photos with like a white background. And on eBay, you could set anything you want as the thumbnail. On Amazon, you have to have a white background, even though not everybody necessarily follows that rules. But, you know, what he's saying right now is that, you know, definitely this is going to click. But and then, no, that's not true. There's good lifestyle photos, there are infographic photos, and there are definitely hero photos that's going to show up very, very well. That's going to, you know, click-through rate very, very well. You know what I mean?
They don't necessarily improve the sale. If you have an item that nobody wants and you take a perfect picture on a white background, it's still not going to sell because people don't want it. Versus you could have an item that people really want and take a picture of it crumpled up in the backseat of your car, it's still going to sell because people want it.
That's not true. If you have a really bad listing, people are already skeptical of, you know, buying things online. If you have, you know, a 50% you know, rating on eBay, right? And a lot of people give you bad ratings and stuff like that, and you're doing bad photos, and, you know, the listing just looks 100% shady, right? People are not going to buy this. Is inaccurate.
So don't listen to someone on the internet and then change your whole store to something thinking that that's going to work. Each individual item has a different set of circumstances. eBay's algorithm is smart. Your store could be completely full of garbage, but one day you list a PlayStation for $100 too low, it's going to sell instantly, even though the rest of your store sucks.
Okay, so you're saying that, like, all of your stuff can be bad, but then you put up one good listing and then suddenly it sells. But then you just explained before that, you know, without the sales velocity, and your store is stale, or the listings are stale or something like that, and you want to get that up so that, you know, your other things could sell. So how does that make any sense? Like, even this is exactly what I'm talking about. Even if I conceded to say, like, okay, let's just go with your laws of physics for this alternate reality, right? And then the stuff that he says for it and the rules of how things work, they still make no sense.
Okay, and you can't trick eBay the other way either. You can't have a beautiful store of amazing things and then place this total piece of garbage and it's not going to sell at the same rate as your amazing stuff.
But you just talked about store velocity before, and about how, like, okay, I'm going to take a loss on these things so that I have more shop velocity. That way my item that doesn't sell very well is going to, that would fall exactly under, like, I have this amazing store where there's, you know, everything is selling very, very good, the sales velocity, and now I stuck this piece of garbage into the middle of it, and then it's sold anyways because I have shop velocity. So in the beginning of the video, you're talking about, like, hey, shouldn't I have any preferential treatment as a seller? And then you don't. And now you're supposed to get preferential treatment as a seller because you're doing velocity and you're doing more promotion and you're, you know, paying like eBay ransoms and stuff. Like, it's just all over the place.
Okay, this is why the algorithm, you can actually kind of game it in a way, because you know that if you delist, relist, you're gonna get 50 to 100 views because eBay doesn't know.
What? Yo, if you delist, relist, and then you just get 50 to 100 views every single time, then you should just be spamming that button all of this thing every time, right? Because you're not going to get the same eyeballs like every single time either. Look, if your item, if your one-off item is getting anywhere between 50 and 100 views and it's still not selling, there's something, you know, that's a deal breaker in that listing, right? You don't have enough photos, something's wrong with the description, the price is no good. There's all sorts of things that could happen. So when you think about how to sell items and how to get rid of items, it's essentially like this. You have to look at the back end of how many views that you're getting. If you're getting a lot of views organically, then you may not necessarily have to promote the item. There's definitely something about the listing that you should look more into. There's something is spelled wrong, the title's no good, it's being positioned incorrectly, and you have to go ahead and fix those things. If all those things are fine, then maybe we're going to drop the price a little bit. But if you're not getting any views at all, then what does it matter if you drop the price? Nobody can see it, it's invisible. So in those cases, you might want to put a little bit more promotion into it. So exactly what you would have been comfortable discounting the item at, you should probably put that into the promotion instead to try to get some eyeballs. Now, once you start getting eyeballs on this particular item and it's still not selling, then possibly this item needs both a combination of promoted ads and to reduce the cost of it in order to offer proper value into the marketplace. You might lose money on this, but it is always better to recoup your losses as best as you can and just don't make the same mistake again. That's all.
They don't know if this listing is going to be good or not, so they're going to give it some traffic. Versus if you have a stale listing, eBay's already given it a bunch of traffic and it didn't convert, eBay already knows this list.
It doesn't make any sense, right? Like, it's a stale listing and eBay's giving it a whole bunch of traffic. Like which is it? If it's stale, then it shouldn't be getting any traffic, right? Because there are such things as stale listings. If it's getting a whole bunch of traffic and it's still not selling, then it makes more sense that we need to revise something about it, because there's something about the listing where everybody is willing to click on it, but they're not willing to pull the trigger on it. So what does that tell you? It's very common sense. I don't know what is all these, like, you know, just storytelling and then filling in the blanks.
Listing is toxic. We're not going to send any listings over here because
the listing is toxic.
They just get gobbled up and we're wasting our ad dollars. You guys realize that eBay is one of the largest advertisers in the world. When you type in something in the Google and you see the eBay listing come up, eBay paid for that. That's not free.
Okay, guys, pause the video right now and go look it up. Look it up right now, okay? How much does eBay pay for advertising your listings and stuff like that? The answer is zero. eBay does not pay Google specifically for indexing anything. Essentially, every single listing that you put on, whether it's on eBay or Amazon, they eventually all index on Google. The reason why they don't necessarily show up for particular keywords is because they need to have a high click-through rate in order to do so. They have to prove themselves in order to do so, because Just because everything indexes doesn't mean that Google has to show you everything. It just shows you the top stuff. So the thing is that if you went ahead and whatever it is your Amazon listing is, or your your eBay listing is that has been on for quite some time, let's say like 2 weeks or something like that, go ahead and take the whole title and then put that into Google and your listing will show up. That's how it works, okay? Given that your title isn't too generic so that like it's going to conflict with other things, find one of your items that hasn't sold for a long time and it kind of has a unique title. Go ahead and copy that whole thing and then just put like, and just Google eBay plus the name of your title, and your item will show up in one of the links at the bottom. It won't show up as a sponsored ad link to sell with like the price or everything like that, but it will be one of the top links on the page. And that's exactly how indexing works. This is what I mean, right? A lot of eBay gurus, resellers, or whatever, they don't actually have the business acumen to be teaching people, but you know, fake it till you make it, right?
Google doesn't work for free. They only post listings that make them money. Okay, so think about it. Is eBay gonna stop spending money on your listing? Probably after a certain point if it doesn't convert.
They're not spending money at all. When you think about exactly how certain websites rank higher than other websites, for example, a very popular company, I don't know, Dirt Devil, Black & Decker, BlendJet, Ninja, like whatever, just go ahead and type that, okay? As their popularity grows, you just type that into the Google and it's going to be the first ones that rank. That's exactly how it works. And that's going to be how it works for every single listing that you put on eBay or Amazon as well, or Walmart or Etsy. Essentially treat them all like little websites. If a lot of people go to your particular listing because it's converting very well, then it's going to index very well on Google as well. That's how it works. Nobody's paying for anything. That's not what's actually happening in real life, sir.
So this is why you need to cycle through and think about impressions. How do you get more impressions to your listing? How do you get more people to click on it and more people to actually convert after they click on it? So hopefully this is useful, guys. Smash the like button. All of my videos are sponsored by my reseller field guide, which is $35 with code YouTube.
This guy wants you to pay $35. Oh, that's great. Let's go back up to the top, right? So guys, if I had to give you actual advice of how to increase like the impressions and stuff like that, the issue is that if you want to start working on more outside influence and stuff, then the best thing to do is to have an actual shop where you could promote it through your own Instagram, your own TikToks, your own YouTube shorts or whatever, so that you could drive even more traffic to your store. However, if you are just a reseller at the moment, that's going to be very difficult. Most of the stuff that you source are going to be mostly just things that you put up on eBay and then you're just going to sit and wait for sales. It's not like having a candle store or having a slime shop where it's a little bit more specific, where I could go ahead and target a certain demographic and say, hey, you guys are into slime, you guys are into candles, you guys are into bath bombs. That's what I do. Come check out my store. And then my store is going to meet exactly the type of SEO, the kind of demographic that people are looking for. You guys can go ahead and meet communities to try to make that connection. That's how you drive a lot of external traffic over to your listings. But if you're selling stuff that's already existing in the market, things that you shopped for, you thrift for, things out of your closet and stuff like that, then you're not going to be able to do that. But that's okay, because you're still starting off. These are good stomping grounds. You're a reseller right now. Don't stop doing what you're doing. But at some point, you always have to consider, how and when am I going to start evolving into something more profound, so that my time, the efforts that come out of it, the input that I put it, and the output that I get is going to multiply and compound over time. Don't keep doing this business model where you put 100% of your efforts in there and then you only get 20% output like this guy is. Anyways, guys, that is the video. If you enjoyed that, please give it a like. And if you learned something, please consider subscribing. As always, I'll see you guys in the next. Take care.